All right, we good? Somebody's already started thinking about their marketing plan. I'm going to roll it out to my new product. Okay, so who here would like to share what you'd like your personal brand to consist of? This is your brand. You should be willing to tell the world. This is what I want my brand to be. And why it's going to be awesome. This is going to make Big Baller Brand look like chump change. Stupid. So, what do you want your personal brand to be? And why? How about in the back? Damn it.
I said reliable and trustworthy.
Reliable and trustworthy. Okay. Great. How about over here?
I said have fun while doing it.
All right, so I want my personal brand to be have fun while whatever I do. Okay?
I also said reliable and trustworthy, and I also added resilient. So anytime I'm going through something difficult, I want to be the person who can stay level headed and push through whatever obstacles are.
Okay.
I said efficient and curious.
Efficient and curious. All right. Any others? Is there anybody here who implicitly said, I want my brand to be rooted in mediocrity? Anybody? Say no? So if it's not rooted in mediocrity, what is it rooted in then? Excellence? Is that what you're saying? It's about excellence for you?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing, yeah?
I think mine was rooted in like process to excellence, like the way by which I would get there.
All right, so going back to the process. Always comes back to that. So here's the thing. A lot of folks advocate they want their personal brand to be reflective of excellence. But the reality is when you examine their actions indicate that they're actually regressing to the mean of mediocrity. That when you examine their behaviors are not consistent with their rhetoric. And here's the thing about each one of you. Your story will not be told by you. Your story will be told by somebody else. Legacy comes from the Latin root legatus, which means person delegated. Somebody is delegated to act as your emissary, to speak on your behalf at some point in the future. What would you have them say about you and why? And if upon examination, your actions result in them telling a story that is less than flattering relative to what you want your brand to consist of, the question becomes, why are you holding back? Because I bet all of you say, hey, I want to be about excellence. Well, here's the thing we know. Aristotle once said, excellence is not a single act, but a habit. We are what we repeatedly do. If you try to treat excellence as if it's a light switch, one day you will go to flip the switch and you will find that you have not paid the bill. It takes 10,000 repetitions to turn anything into a habit. And so if your personal brand is about excellence, why are you wasting reps? Because that's what happens every time you elect not to do the thing you know you should do, the thing you say you're committed to because you're all about excellence, but you elect to pass it up because of perceived barriers like, I'm not in charge, or I don't want to get a bad rep because I'm trying to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, you have to live with the brand you create. So are you willing to have those persons delegated to tell your story say, yeah, they elected not to do the right thing routinely, which is why I love their brand. I love the stink that is mediocrity. And if you were to put on a board all the benefits associated with mediocre behavior and contrast that with excellence, which one would have a longer list of positive benefits? What do you think? All right. It might be mediocrity. Like, hey, I get a lot of Netflix. I get a lot of sleep. I make a modest amount of money, which means I don't have to worry about managing my money. You know, whatever it is. So we're very good at making statements about what we want to represent, but we're not very good at examining are the behaviors that we're routinely manifesting Ones that will help me to achieve my brand or to harm my brand. So how important is your brand to you? And what are you doing to help those around you achieve their brand as well? Because if that brand is that important to you, then it should galvanize your willingness to push through the obstacles. And I know that none of you aspire to have mediocrity as your brand. But many times, if you don't take the time to reflect on your actions, or to reflect on the actions of those around you who say they want their brand to be rooted in excellence, but their behavior is telling you a very different story, and you don't have the courage to go, hey man, that's just not helping to advance towards having excellence as our brand. You don't have that courage to be a support mechanism, then you have to live with the fact that you've created a brand that's less than flattering. So how committed are you to forging the brand that you say is so important and to helping others to do the same? Those are interesting questions to pose to yourself. Because one of the things we know to be true is others don't have to live with your outcomes. You do. I was a college athlete. You might have heard of me. I was kind of a big deal, like Little Baby Jesus. So, yeah. I was happily numb in the middle of the class academic. Actually, I was about a third of the class academically. So I was a college athlete at West Point. Played football. Swam for 1 year too, trying to double up his leg. Stupid. And so, dropped swimming, stuck with football. We had a very good team back then. We weren't number 17 in the country, but we finished in the top 25 2 years in a row. Won the Peach Bowl, won the Cherry Bowl, got the Commander-in-Chief trophy, got to go to the Oval Office and get the trophy from the president. That's a nice photo. You know, so I was all committed to like sports. But I said, you know, I had this commitment to excellence in all things. But the reality was, I was picking and choosing excellence. So if it was important to me, I'd do it. If I didn't perceive, going back to somebody saying, I don't know if they really, I don't know if the rule makes sense or whatever, then I was kind of blowing it off. And at West Point, when you graduate from there and you enter into the military, all the career fields are told to you in advance. Here's all the slots for the various career fields, and here's all the places you can go. And then you get to pick based on your class rank. Number one, what do you want to do? I want to go to Italy, and I want to fly airplanes. Great, that's one slot off the board. And I went there for one reason. I want to be a pilot. I wanted to be a pilot more than anything. But you know, I kind of was happy-go-lucky. Picked and choose what I chose to try to put effort into. And then came that night when we got to pick everything. And I knew it was going to be close. But I was like, I got this. And then it came my turn. And the person in front of me got the last pilot slot. And next thing you know, I was despondent. I was like, what the just happened? How can this happen? This is not supposed to happen. Then I had a big ugly cry, then I got angry, then I shook my fist at God, I did all these things, and ultimately, I came back and I examined, had I been working the entire time I was there to create the brand I said it was so important to me? And upon examination, the answer was no. And now I had to live with the fact that I had created a brand that was less than what I said I wanted my brand to consist of. I lost my dream because of my unwillingness to hold myself accountable. And that not enough other people held me accountable along the way. And in that moment, I made a vow that I would never let apathy determine anything in my life ever again. Because the feeling that was associated was one that I would not wish on anyone. And so that became my crucible moment. To say, how committed am I to doing every day the process that will allow my brand to be excellent, and how committed am I to helping others engage in that process as well. That's why tonight you haven't heard a lot of answers being told you, you do this, do that. Tonight is about reflecting on the right questions and figuring out how committed you are to doing that which is necessary to become the kind of person you say you want to be? And then how committed are you to doing the same thing for those around you? Because that's what it means to be a great teammate. To push people when they know they need to be pushed, but might not necessarily have the wherewithal to push self. Because at the end of the day, when you go back and you say, you know, what did it mean to be a part of that team? It was to be part of something that truly was committed to one another's well-being. If you think about the word cohort, it comes from the Latin word cohorta, which was a group of Roman soldiers committed to the collective defense of one another. That they literally put one another's lives in each other's hands. That's what it meant to be part of a cohort. And any great team is a cohort. So what lengths are you willing to go to improve the lives of those around you? And by improving their lives, you forge your own positive legacy. What's holding you back? Because all of the barriers you identified can all be overcome by simply committing yourself to doing the things that truly are reflective of excellence. Excellence is not rooted in what you say. It is always rooted in what you elect to do. Thoughts about that? So tonight's a reflective exercise more than it is, here's a checklist for how you should behave. Because the most valuable instrument you have as a leader is self. It's not formal authority. It's not being cool. It's not being the best player. It's who you are and how you elect to live your life. That is always the most influential tool you have. So what's holding you back from being the you say you want to be? Food for thought. Your thoughts? Pollyanna? Bunch of hooey? Do you ever think about it? Where are you at in those 10,000 reps? How many reps are you wasting each day? What do you think? Accountability. Thoughts? I'm not the shell answer man. These are just my perspectives. Many of them are informed by science. What say you? On guard. Huh?
I like the idea of using reflection rather than giving us the answers. Because people will want different answers anyway. Education styles.
Yeah, everybody's going to go about this process of galvanizing their own willingness in a very different way. But going through that process of reflection to say, what's holding me back from becoming the kind of person I want to be, is very useful, because all the things you listed are legitimate fears. They're all legitimate. But how do you break through it? How does a guy who had a 2.42 GPA end up with a doctorate from Columbia and 6 master's degrees? Not because I'm Mr. Wizard. It was because I was so pissed off and so willing to work to overcome something. It took me 4 years before I finally got a pilot slot, but I got it. Because I learned in that moment that my rhetoric was, I'm all about excellence, but upon examination my behavior was, I am completely happy with being mediocre in many of the things I do. And I was so livid because I had let my parents down, I had let my grandparents down, I had let my community down, and I had let myself down. Because I was privileged. I was privileged to have 2 parents who loved me and invested everything in me. I was privileged to go to an amazing school. I was privileged to have wonderful friends. I had let myself down, and I also recognized that I had let them down. Because there were things that were going on in their life that I could have altered how they approached it. And I said, never again. Never again. So, I'm thankful for having had that moment. But I also know that it doesn't take some abject failure to create that clarity. I want you to unlock the power of belief in self now and to galvanize your willingness to pursue excellence every day. And excellence is not rooted in doing something extraordinary. It's rooted in doing the ordinary things well every single time. If you do the ordinary things well every single time and hold others accountable for doing the same, all that ordinary adds up to extraordinary. That's process. That's process. So what do you want your legacy to be? And how committed are you to achieve it? Because your legacy will never be about your job title. It'll always be about alignment between deed and rhetoric. Thoughts? That's deep. That's some deep stuff. I'm thinking about that.
I was just thinking how our team like focuses a lot on the day-to-day, so we fill out these journals that at the end of the day make us reflect on our lessons learned and like our wins and what we're grateful for. And I think that kind of helps us.
Reflective
Check
practice
out.
always helps.
Yeah.
Also, being very clear about what you're holding yourself accountable for, and then measuring that. If I said I was going to work out, did I work out? If I said I was going to study, did I study? If I said I was going to prepare adequately for film, did I do that? It's all those ordinary things and holding yourself accountable and then holding those around. That's what adds up to excellence. But accountability always matters. Accountability is a huge part of that process. Other thoughts? What's top of mind for you?
What do you do when you have like conflicting, like, or I guess if you have like time demands that make you pick and choose kind of? If that makes sense.
Great question. I go back to discipline is reflected in what I choose to do. It's also reflected in what I choose not to do. Many times you ask yourself, based on competing demands, which one's going to have a higher payoff towards becoming the kind of person I want to become. And you start to strip away the superfluous stuff. So you talk about, I don't watch TV. The reason I was able to do all those degrees while working was I started stripping away stuff that wasn't adding value. And guess what? When you start stripping that away and start replacing it with stuff that does add value as defined by it's helping me to advance towards this thing I say is most important, you'd be amazed at how disciplined you become. So are you doing the math?
So, if you're so devoted to the process and what you want and this connection between deeds and rhetoric and devoting yourself to your team and your own brand, doesn't that make it really hard to kind of have relationships outside of that devotion and to leave time for things like that that may not be helping you toward this goal at all, but you enjoy?
Okay, so the question is, why do you believe it compromises your ability to have other things? Here's the thing. I'll give you this quick insight and then you counter. Doing the right thing rarely takes a lot of time. The time that it takes generally is having the courage, building up to doing the right thing. But doing the right thing usually takes, in most instances, seconds. Seconds. It's kind of like a Geico commercial. 15 minutes, focus on the right thing, can save you 15 hours doing the wrong thing. So, being precise, holding yourself accountable, can actually open up more time so that you can do the things you want to do with other people. It doesn't require you to put everything into this. It just means that for the things I put into this, am I doing it to standard? And if I am, great. And I can do all the other things I want to do too. I didn't have to sacrifice friends along the way. I didn't have to sit there and say, you know what, I have no time to go to a meal or eat or whatever else. No, it doesn't mean that. We wrongly believe that many times establishing positive relationships and doing the right thing takes some extraordinary amount of time. And upon testing that assertion, we find out it's a flawed assumption. You can still have a lot of great relationships. You can still do a lot of things that you just personally enjoy because you have clarity around what what you need to do so you can do what you want. Thoughts on that?
I think it makes sense. The fact that it takes such a short amount of time, I feel like applies to some things, but not all things. Because
That's
there's-
true.
There's some sort of practice that, like a certain, say you want to go for a certain major that you know will be more difficult.
Yep.
You know it'll take more of your time to master
Mhm.
that thing. So I think that that's something where it comes to a trade-off between mastering that and building a relationship outside of your brand.
That's true. You know, and we all make choices. My thing is always, okay, if I'm committed to both, I want to do those things and I want to do this. What are all the ways in which I can get there? Don't constrain your thinking. Become creative. Many times we constrain our thinking as to what is possible. It might be possible to do both well. It just means you have to make trade-offs in other areas that aren't adding as much value. Sometimes you have coaching staffs that are like, hey, these are the majors that are, now I don't know if they do this here, but at other schools, they will try to steer you into certain majors because they're less demanding. Now, I don't think that's the case here at Lakeway Northwestern. You know, we got a bunch of super smart athletes and all that. But you know, I remember my one friend's coach said, all right, I want to be clear. Academics 1, team 2. You know? They do stuff like that. I don't think that's the case here. We try to truly build the student athlete and whole person. But you do have choices to make about what's going to give you the highest payoff for things that I say matter to me. On examination, when I start to see how much time I spent just doing nothing, I was like, man, I spent a lot of time just chilling. Is it, in order for me to be chill, do I have to spend all that time? Or can I still, like, decompress in a quarter of the time? And use the rest of it to do something that's going to add more value. Because you got to relax at some point. But many times we over-relax. Any other thoughts? I know we're at our time boundary. I'm always cognizant of time. All right, so, quick after-action review. What were we supposed to talk about? Accountability. What did we talk about? Accountability and other things. What kind of other things did we talk about? Personal brand, absolutely. Anything else? Influence, absolutely. Core of leadership. Anything else?
Trust,
Trust. Trust, how do you build it? What does it consist of?
credibility, reliability, intimacy, and self-interest.
Boom. Shakalaka. I like it. What holds us back? Knowing our own impediments. And then the importance of reps. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what allowed us to talk about all that in the course of an hour? Were you engaged? Were you cooperative? Were you committed to the process? Outstanding. And so if you were to have a similar conversation at some point in the future, how could you get more out of it? That's always the fourth question. What would you do differently having had this experience? How could you get more out of a similar exercise? Say you were to conduct a similar exercise with your teammates. How could you get more out of it than what we derived over the course of last hour? What do you think? One suggestion.
Maybe just ask specific people more questions, or try to find more ways to engage everybody.
Okay, great. One suggestion from you.
Ask them if they want their legacy to be.
All right. And sometimes having them do that reflective work in advance before they come in is a smart thing to do. So that they've actually taken some time to noodle on it so you can be more productive in the conversation. Great. Feedback always matters. Feedback always matters. It's part of accountability. So always solicit feedback, always act on feedback. That's part of that process of holding yourself and others accountable and committing yourself to doing those ordinary things well every single time. All right, I look forward to seeing you around campus. Best of luck to all of you. Have a great evening. Stay warm. Stay dry. Stay committed. Go Cats.
Hey, just one quick announcement. First and foremost, Professor Banks, thank